You can put a block right between your ankles so that your sitting bones go right on it, just like this. And then let your hands rest right on your lap. You want to look?
Sure.
No, face the window. Other window. Good grief. Okay. So then once you get settled in, just kind of let your whole body get heavy for a moment. Let your shoulders slide down off your ears. It's oftentimes when we get stressed, which there seems to be plenty of reason for lately, we have dysfunctional breathing patterns that begin to implicate the neck. And when that happens, then our shoulders begin to kind of squeeze up into the head. And then we get all sorts of other peripheral problems that are instigated by something else. So you let your shoulders relax down. And what happens in turn is your sternum actually lifts. So the whole anterior surface of the whole anterior compartment of your respiratory system becomes a little bit more embellished just by simply knowing what to do with the shoulders. And although it does seem in a big way that we do practice to progress, to improve, to advance, there's a little bit of misunderstanding that can sneak into this assumption that every yoga practice has to be some kind of a progression and improvement upon the previous. And fundamentally, what we're practicing is precision. And so it's not so much that our postures need to evolve, but it's really just our ability to be precise in our actions. And once that occurs, then the body really just follows right along. Okay, so going right from the sitting position, keep your legs heavy, start to float your eyes open, interlace your fingers in front of you, and then get a nice tight knit of your fingers, trim your palms inside out, push your palms forward, and especially press into the backs of your hands with the peace fingers, the middle and index fingertips, as if you're kind of curling or unfolding your palm even further by doing that. And then slowly start to lift your arms overhead, and as your arms lift, it doesn't have to be that your arms come right away to this vertical position. So if you notice that pulling your arms further back behind you starts to close up the posterior part of your trunk and puts you into a back bend, then keep your arms a little bit more anterior, and as you try to pull your arms back progressively, pull your front ribs in. So imagine you're doing just a little bit of a crunch in your abdomen as you pull your arm back. Use your legs to support the lift of the arms just by simply squeezing your thighs together. And you kind of notice that as your thighs connect to each other like that, you get this amplifying feeling of projecting your torso up. So with the next couple of breaths, add the elevation of your shoulder blades. So this is where we make it a little bit more active. And as your shoulders lift up, what you'll notice is the anatomy of your shoulders slide up, keep going, right around the ears. Yes! So if there's no space or minimal space between your neck and your shoulders, that's a sign that you're doing it right. As long as you're not stuffing your head back into your rib cage, you keep elevating through the head, you keep elevating through the spine, and keep pushing up through the hands. Just another couple of breaths. Remember the index and middle fingertips pressure and emphasis right along the backs of the hands. So this actually prepares us for our downward dog. On the next exhale, bring your arms down. Now let's just take an easy twist to the left first. So you're going to hold your left thigh with your right hand and place your left hand on the mat. And if it's too far to reach your left hand to the mat, you can put a block underneath it, or you can simply Just like that, recline backwards. So whatever feels easiest, whatever's less complicated to devise. And as you're twisting, for now at least, it's much more important that you use your back arm to create this lengthening of the torso. So with each inhale, you're really plugging your left fingertips and your left hand into the floor. And as you exhale, just give like say 50-60% effort with the pull of your right arm, so that we're not really attempting to twist deep in the sense of how much ground you can cover and how deep your range of motion can be, but it's really the depth is defined by your ability to be precise, your ability to feel precision, to feel accuracy, as well as your ability to act accurately. And so our sensing and our actions, they really follow along, function along the same track. Last breath out. Good. Inhale, come back to center, and then as you go to the right, remember you can recline back as long as you're not slumping. Then you get your right hand to the floor, and on the inhale, you push your right hand down to get a little longer, and as you exhale, use your left arm to find a little bit more twist. And close your eyes. Let yourself, for now, be a little bit more interiorized, a little bit less involved in what you see on the outside, and just involved in the sensations of, again, what it feels like to twist in the body, and then what the actions actually feel like, right? And a lot of those can seem like they're almost identical, so just watch it closely, because we need to be able to separate sensing from acting. Last breath out. Good. And as you inhale, come back to center, come forward on all fours, and then just start to come into your first downward dog without too much tension or pressure or haste. And then as you get through your downward dogging, pedaling your heels, moving your hips about, whatever you need to do, relax your neck, let your head just drop down. And maybe not so forcefully right away, but start to recall what you were doing with your shoulders when we were sitting on the ground with the arms overhead, and that instruction of lifting the shoulder blades up towards the neck and head, and mimic that here. And so this is really a beautiful and functional way to do downward dog that actually preserves your shoulders. You know, all the missed opportunity that we have in postures, the most common one that I've seen over the years is students not active enough in their practice. So there's a difference between the downward dog of one person and the downward dog of another person. And this can really kind of be summarized in, I guess, one statement of action really kind of sets you free. It's not acting enough that leaves us prone to injury. Good. Once your legs get a little bit more still, start to lift your toes, and even more so, and I know this first downward dog is longer than usual, see if you can lift the little toes off the ground. Even so that the outer edges of your feet begin to get a little bit lighter. And this is where we get precise. So what does it feel like to lift the outer edges of your feet? And then what does that do to the rest of your legs? And so the action that comes from doing that in the foot actually helps us internally rotate the thighs. So where the knees start to turn towards each other. Good. Take one more deep breath in. As your exhale begins, bend your knees, lift your heels, and then walk or just gently step your feet up towards the hands. And then as you inhale, lengthen your torso forward, stick your sitting bones out. On the exhale, fold. And use really nothing but the strength of your legs on the inhale as you come all the way up to stand with your arms overhead at the top. And exhale, arms down. Inhale, arms up. Lift your toes, heels heavy. Exhale, keep your legs strong and really just rigid, if you think of it that way. Inhale, lengthen forward. And then exhale, plant your palms, step back. Stay in high push-up for a moment. Make sure that you still can get weight through the middle and index finger knuckles, and sustain your weight there, starting to even take some more body weight off of your wrist, off of the heel of the palm. Okay, now watch your hand technique. Keep your fingers gripped. As you exhale, lower down either to your first chaturanga, or you can come all the way to the floor. And then slowly inhale, slide up to upper dog, and stay in this first one for just a couple of breaths. If your legs are on the ground, still engage your glutes. But if your thighs are lifted, as a normal upper dog, then definitely engage your glutes. Spike your toenails into the floor. Take one more inhale. And then as your exhale begins, start to pull your belly button back, clip your toes into the ground, returning back to dog pose for about 5 breaths. And what we've talked about before several times is the total length of your base in downward dog. So the distance from the hands to the feet. If the heels come to the ground very easily without too much effort on your part, if you step the feet back a little bit further, you're actually going to force your body to evolve and progress, even in terms of range of motion. And so if the heels aren't touching the ground, that's fine. That's actually preferable than getting the heels down, because then it gives you a higher mark, a higher bar to reach. So by lifting the toes, what you're doing is you're setting and organizing actions of your legs that in turn help to bring your heels down. So the higher you lift your toes, you're supporting the action of lowering the heels, which is releasing some chronic tension in the calf that so many of us have. Take another big inhale. As your exhale starts, lift your heels, bend the knees, walk or step or hop forward. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold. And one big inhale as you slam your feet to the ground in the effort to get your torso up, palms together at the top. Exhale, arms down. One more release. Take a deep breath in, arms up. And as you exhale, really focus on contracting your quadriceps, so the front thighs, maybe lower. Inhale, keep your toes light and spread, lengthen. On this same exhale, plant your palms, step back and lower to chaturanga. Make sure you get to the base of your exhale every time. Inhale, you got upward dog, and exhale, we'll meet back in dog pose. And immediately as you get into dog pose, relax your neck. Now, the direction that we're going to go to today for this class is again backwards back bends. Fridays have had a tendency to be more on the back bend of the spectrum. So how far your hands are apart from each other, everybody? Just move your hands about 2 inches closer to each other. Just 2 inches, it doesn't have to be too much. Still maintain precise action through the index and middle finger knuckles. Still keep your neck relaxed. And the way that you're pressing away from the floor almost should feel like either you're reaching your hands, you're trying to get your hands beneath the floor, beneath the mat that you're on, or you're actually trying to project the ground away from you. Yes, and then use your arm power in that sense to start to reach your chest back towards your legs. Take 2 more breaths like that. Okay, inhale, lift your heels up. Exhale, bend your knees. Walk or step or hop forward. Inhale, lengthen. And as you exhale and fold, be patient enough to wait for the exhale to actually complete. Keep your legs rigid and firm as you inhale, come all the way up. And then exhale, arms come down. Okay, a couple of variations on the second form of the sun salute. So lift your toes, bend the knees, Utkatasana first, as usual. Squeeze your thighs together this time. And like you did in downward dog before, lift your toes and try, even though it might not be too much right now, try to lift the outer edges of your feet. And use the outer edge lift to get a little better connection between the legs. One more inhale. Exhale, straighten your legs while folding. Good. Watch those outer edges. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, plant your palms. Step back. Take your time to get through your low plank, and then coming out of upward dog, have enough exhale room left to step your right foot forward, taking us right into our very first high lunge. And so high lunge also implies long lunge. So what we're looking for is a long enough stance to where your front thigh is parallel to the ground, or as close as it can get. Perfect. And when you're ready, lift your arms up. Okay, now keep your torso upright, and then as you exhale, bring your arms down and turn to the right. And by down, I mean bring your arms parallel to the floor, so they're an extension of each shoulder. Keep your back leg solid, still maintain some good bend in your front knee, and if you have the capacity and dexterity for it, lift your front toes. And then from here, maintaining the same twist in the trunk, just slowly lower your left hand down. So you end up in a nice, easy twist. Maybe not so easy, but at least it's simple, right? Some of our favorite poses, those simple twists, eh? Okay, take one more deep breath out. On the next inhale, bring your right arm down, step your right leg back on the same exhalation preferably. As you continue through your vinyasa, save enough exhale coming out of upward dog to step your left foot forward. Good, take a long stance, maybe even longer than what you're used to. We want to always try to undermine the habits that we even build up in our practice. Good, once you get your front thigh parallel, this time bring your arms behind you instead of overhead. Interlace your fingers, squeeze your shoulder blades back behind you, and then try to lift your arms off of your hips, off of your torso as far as you can. Notice how much distance you can get between the upper arms and the ribs. And then keeping your front leg nice and strong, you're going to release the arms, twist to the left, arms in the T position. If you have the balance for it, you want to challenge yourself, look straight back at your left hand and still maintain this attitude of excellence in your legs. And especially the back leg is going to be more of your engine, your power source. Your front leg is more of your steering wheel, okay? So keep the power source on and then lower your torso down as the right hand lands on the mat. Just double check your bottom hand, make sure that the middle finger stays facing straight forward to 12 o'clock, the same orientation as your left toes. And that'll prohibit any dangerous positioning for your right shoulder. Taking the next 2 breaths here. Notice if already your jaw and your teeth and your tongue are starting to tighten down in compensation for the rest of the body. Next inhale brings your left hand to the mat. Same exhale, steps the left hand down. And as you proceed through your vinyasa, we'll end up in downward dog. Return, as soon as you get back to downward dog, return your hands back to the same distance that you had previously when we brought them 2 inches closer together. Similarly, as what you do with your feet, even if you just try to lift the very tip of your pinky fingers, that'll begin to set a different action into the arms that starts to bear down into more weight in the index finger knuckles. And the reason we always want to be able to bear more weight in the index, the outer edge of the fingers, or the hand knuckles, is because that connects to the more solid part of your wrist, which in turn helps you support your shoulders better. Okay, take an inhale, lift your heels up, exhale, bend the knees, walk or step or hop forward. Lovely. Inhale, lengthen, butt bones back, chest forward, exhale, fold. On the next inhale, bend the knees, set up for Utkatasana, just 3 breaths. 3 important things. Dominant weight stays in the heels, outer edges of the feet lift, and thighs squeeze together. Just keep those 3 in constant circulation, and it's almost like the upper body will just have a life and alignment of its own. Take 1 more inhale. And as you exhale, straighten your legs and stand up. Okay, inhale, bend the knees, Utkatasana. Exhale, straighten your legs and fold. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, plant your palms, step back, be very cautious how fast you move through these vinyasas. Like before, coming out of upward dog, step your right foot forward. We'll start with high lunge again, this time back to arms overhead. And find length in your lunge. Find more depth in your front knee. As soon as you notice that becomes uncomfortable, welcome the discomfort. As long as the discomfort is not associated with any other pain and trauma and injury that you've had in the past or currently. Okay, so now straighten the front leg. Bring your arms parallel to the ground. Good, like a warrior two. And then slide open to warrior two beginning, more like a triangle beginning, so that your front leg is straight, your arms parallel to the ground, keep the front toes light. And then you can't really see from the angle that Michelle is in, but what I'm going to ask you to do is lift the front of your right foot and then rotate your right toes to the right as far as you can before setting your foot back down. So your toes are somewhere along the 1 to 2 o'clock plane. So then make sure that your kneecap is also pointing in that direction. Exhale, reach forward into your full Trikonasana. Great. And a huge element of triangle pose that I always need to talk about is how we compare the length of both sides of the torso. And what's usually the case is that the bottom end of the torso in triangle is much shorter than the top. And the way that we adjust it is by bringing that bottom hip back more, almost as if you were vertically setting your left hip above the right hip, which cannot happen without the cooperation of your front thigh. Reach your top arm beyond your head. So start to bring your top arm with where it usually goes in Parsvakonasana, side angle pose. Just make sure you're rotating your shoulder the same way, you're rotating your whole arm so your palm faces back. And then slowly start to bend your front knee so that you come into the full Parsvakonasana. Elbow can come onto your front thigh, not a problem. Otherwise, if your hand is down on the mat or on the block, keep the arm on the outside of the leg, always. Also, steer your front leg into your right arm. Keep decent amount of weight heavy through the back foot. And then left hand goes on the left hip. Look out in front of your right foot. We're going to come into balancing half moon. This is a long sun salutation. What is going on there? So as you lift your back leg up, the toes shouldn't aim up as much. So even though you're lifting the entire leg, you're not exactly pointing the toes or the knee to the ceiling. So keep that in mind. Set in action just a little bit of an internal rotation of the top leg. Yep, so the top toes aim down a bit. Okay, now we're going to try to go one more step. Bend your top knee and start to reach your left hand back to your top ankle. And initially, you can pull your heel towards your butt for just a couple of breaths and notice how your quadricep feels. And then once you get that connection, start to kick your left leg back. So along with kicking your leg, what's going to happen is your left shoulder is going to get pulled back and you're going to get much more exposure in the chest, which is already starting to signify the direction we're going for our back bending. Keep your front toes light. Stay for about 2 more breaths. And for those of you where it's pretty easy to just hold on to this pose and balance, put more effort into the left glute and the way you're kicking your left leg back. Then release your foot. Carefully step back to Trikonasana just to check in. And on the next inhale, bend your front knee, bring your left hand down, step the right leg back. Take your vinyasa. If nothing else, at least you can say after this class, you've done the longest sun salutation in the world. Step your left foot forward. And then come on up. So back to our high lunge. High also implies long. Right? So yogis don't just get high. We get long while we're getting high. Okay, now bring your arms parallel to the ground and straighten your front leg. Straighten your front leg first. Face forward. So face forward, keep your chest facing forward and straighten your front leg all the way. Good. And then turn your whole body to the right So you're setting up for the base of Trikonasana. And like we did on the previous side, lift the front of your left foot and turn the left foot as far as you can to the left so it sets itself hopefully on a 10 o'clock plane. Make sure your knee and thighs cooperate so they're both, all of them are facing that way. And then exhale, reach forward into completing your Trikonasana. Hand on the ground or hand on the shin. Wherever your hand is, by the way, make sure that you let a big amount of your body weight be supported in that bottom arm. The cooperation of your front leg is integral to lengthening this left side of the torso. You might notice that compared to the previous side, this might be easier, or this side might be harder. And knowing these tendencies between our left and right, or between our front and back, is how we can begin to deconstruct some of the inhibitions and some of the bad habits that we've been confined by. Reach your top arm overhead beyond you for Parsva Konasana position. And it's a little easier to see here. And what we want to do is have the palm face back. Have more of your bicep face back. So it's just extreme external rotation. And then complete that by bending your front knee and getting into your full Parsva Konasana. Keep the front toes light. Steer your front knee into your left arm. And if your elbow's on the thigh, still continue steering your front knee out to the left. The strength of your legs starts to improve the capability of your spine, and if your spine works better, your breath works better. So nothing in the body works in a vacuum. Okay, now from here, place your right hand on your right hip, look out in front of you, step forward into balancing half moon, take your time. I didn't say it on the first side. Maintain enough distance between your bottom hand and your bottom foot so that you actually have a pretty big base. And generally, as you can see Michelle did so well, her left arm and her left leg are perfectly vertical. So that's what we want. We want to represent the distance between the hip and the shoulder in the base between the hand and the foot. Start to then bend your top knee, grab your ankle, and first, just pull your heel towards your butt. So you kind of say hello to your quadriceps and the state that they're in right now. Relax the jaw, watch your left fingertip technique. Keep your front toes light. And then slowly begin to kick your top leg back behind you so you notice how your right shoulder starts to come on with it. And you can always adjust your left hand a little bit further back behind you to give you a little bit better balance the further your right leg extends. Good, take this last exhale and then release the leg and carefully step back to Trikonasana. Just for a couple of breaths to check in. Because balancing half moon is just the balancing version of Trikonasana. Perfect. Now the next inhale, bring your right hand down. Step your left leg back. Take a vinyasa. And meet back in downward dog. Okay. And now in this downward dog, bring your hands even closer together, even if it's slightly, than where they were before. Relax your neck, drop your head, close your eyes. Okay then, let's now bring the right knee forward, bring the right foot forward, bring your left knee down. And now we'll need those 1 and maybe even 2 blocks. So keep those handy and keep your belt handy. So first of all, to get this lunge to do what it needs to do, start with your hands on the mat. And then just simply lengthen the base between the bottom knee and the front foot. And try to lengthen this base more by reaching your left leg back than just getting your front foot forward. And if you take your right foot forward a little bit more, it's okay to not have the knee right above the ankle. It's okay to have the ankle beyond the knee, and it's also okay to have the knee beyond the ankle. But we just want to be able to isolate how far we reach this right leg back. because now we're working into extension. When you get that distance, your pelvis comes close to the ground. You're going to start with one block, perhaps, in its tall setting, and put that underneath your right sitting bone. And if that actually makes you come up, if you're that flexible, you can take your block to this next second high setting. Just make sure you're able to actually land your butt bone on the block so that you don't have to think of balancing. And then once you get that, carefully come on up. Put your hands right here on your lower belly. So first of all, like, find your belly button, stick 1 or 2 fingers in there, and then if you go about 3 or 4 fingers widths below your belly button, you'll be in contact with your low belly. So if you dig your fingers in a bit, try to pull that part of your belly away from your fingers. So it's not the whole belly that you're sucking in, it's just that lower section below the belly button. That's going to be the safety container and support for your low back. Simultaneously engage your left glute, and then keeping your belly with you, put your hands on your front thigh, and firmly, but conservatively, start to push your torso back as if your aim is to get your head closer to your left leg, say closer to your left calf. Use your glute as the main apparatus that keeps your back a little bit more supported. So the glutes aren't able to be active in any posture, anywhere in life. That puts more pressure and more load on the lower back. So the degree to which you engage your glute is the degree to which you unload your lower back, right? Yeah, so then bring your hands down. Carefully switch sides. Jump switching is probably out of the question right now. And when you get your left foot forward and right knee down, increase the distance between your front foot and your back knee, mostly by attempting to slide your right knee further back. The further, the better. And then you get your block and put it on that same height, that same setting. And then slowly come up. And one little adjustment that you guys might appreciate, if you're going so far into a lunge that it feels like your front thigh is being obstructed in the front of your hip somewhere here on the right, just simply move your right leg to the right a little bit and turn your toes and thigh to the right so that you have more space in your hip joint. Because you can still do the same stuff as long as you're balanced and supported on the blocks, then everything is as it should be. Re-engage your lower belly. On this side, engage your right glute instead of your left. And then with your hands on your front thigh, begin to carefully push your sternum, not even just your sternum. Think about your lower abdomen that's closer to your front thigh. How far can you get this section of your abdomen separated from the left leg? And the further you go with that, the more you're going to start to train proper hip extension on the right. And hip extension obviously begets our spinal extension. Now remember, spinal extension is something that we naturally don't really do, or it's not called for in life. Most of the time we're flexing, we're rounding, and that's what is leading to all this high and growing incidence of low back pain and all the degenerations of the lumbar spine. So these last 2 breaths, since we're working on the psoas, it's almost like your psoas can reach into your throat. So keep your throat psoas relaxed. One more breath out. Nice. And then bring your hands down. Step your left leg back. And definitely take a vinyasa. Just as a nice reset. Step your right foot forward after you get to your dog pose again. Bring your left knee down again. And do the same thing. So now see if you can get a little bit more length. If this is a longer class, we do 3 sets of this. So in some ways, we're kind of lucky. So by bringing your front leg further and further back, you're increasing the base of your pose, which means your pelvis is coming closer to the ground. This is what we want. And then if you can set your block to a lower setting, do that. Go 1 setting lower, sit on the right, And you can already tell that on the shelf, this back thigh is getting very close to the ground. So a huge part of splits, front splits, Hanumanasana, doesn't have to do with the flexibility of your hamstring in the front leg. It has more to do with the flexibility of your hip flexors in the left leg. Okay, so again, with the hands on the front thigh, start to gently drive your torso back a little bit more. Lift your low belly. And if you want to add a little bit more zest, more spirit to the pose, as long as you're balanced on the block, lift your arms up. So we're already starting to animate the full scope of our Hanumanasana, even though we're still supported right now. Lift your shoulder blades up. Keep your low belly lifted. Without having the luxury of your hands on your thigh, you have to determine that your lower belly is doing all the work to support now the weight of your arms overhead. And the more you train the low belly, the better, right? It's hard work now, but it pays off eventually. Take one more deep breath in. And as you exhale, bring your hands down. Carefully switch sides. Increase and maximize the distance between front foot and back foot, front foot and back knee. And you don't have to keep such a strict angle of the lunge in your front leg. You can be a little bit more generous with how much your front leg straightens. Right, just remember, you can turn your left knee to the left to make sure that your hip joint has some space. Set your block a little bit lower than before, if possible. And then sit on it, come on up, make sure your right butt is engaged. We didn't do this before, but there's always going to be a tendency for the pelvis to twist, however slightly. So imagine pulling your left leg, yes, and your left hip back, while you're pulling your right leg and your right hip forward. Keep the butt strong, and if you did so before, you can lift your arms now for that full presentation of our Hanumanasana. Just make sure that your arms are kind of catapulting off of your body. It actually is possible to engage your arms in such a way that the lift of them feels more like it's unloading the lower back than loading it. So set the target for your fingers to be somewhere on the ceiling and further back. Relax your mouth if you can close your eyes. Face this challenge, this like inevitable tension that it takes to be healthy. This is just how we pay the bills for our health. Health isn't free, and as the saying goes, freedom isn't free, and health is freedom. One more inhale. Exhale, bring your hands down. Very nice. Step your left leg back, take a vinyasa, just to get a good reset. Okay, lovely. Now, bring your knees to the ground. Sit on a block again, come forward a little bit, and make sure the block stays between your ankles. And first, we're going to take care of the left leg. So when you come forward, again, place your hands on the floor. You have your hands on the floor, bring your knees close together, and we'll just take care of the left calf. So grab your left calf with your left hand. And usually we hear this taught as turn your calf to the left. Don't ever do that. Don't ever turn your calf, because then you can start turning your shin bone. Rather, push your calf down towards your heel while sitting back. So you're going to pin your hand in the crease of your knee and then slide your hands out backwards as soon as you're down. Keep the left leg as is. Step your right foot forward so you're more like this, Ekapada, Supta Dharasana. Okay, so you got your left toes, left toenails nailed to the mat. If you look at your left thigh, you want to keep a straight line between the left knee and the left hip. From there, lower back onto the hands. Make sure your fingers face forward. And as soon as you get there on your hands, push with your hands just enough to take your butt off the block and do a posterior tilt. For all of us that remember and know this, it just means simply the opposite of sticking your butt out. And when you've done that, you will place a higher portion of your butt back on the block. Okay? If that doesn't feel too restrictive, come back to your elbows one by one. Make sure that your left thigh and knee doesn't lift off the floor, for which pressing your toenails down with your own intrinsic foot muscles is going to be the best support. And then once you're on your elbows, push with your elbows, lift your pelvis again, and do more posterior tilt. And at this point, you should have almost the uppermost part of your glutes on the block. So we can just stay there. If you're going to stand your elbows, project your elbows firmly enough into the ground to lift your chest up. And if you want to lower all the way back onto your back, as you lower your back down, still press your back into the floor. Try to get a little microscopic lift in your pelvis and do another little bit of tilt. Now, to make this really a big load on you, to really increase the range here, you can keep the block underneath your pelvis, because then you're starting to embellish the flexibility of your hip flexors in a very big way. But if you just take the block out from underneath you, you can still do a lot of good service on these hip flexors without overdoing it. And that difference between doing it and overdoing it is really on that scale that we talk about sometimes, the 1 to 10 intensity scale, where we never want to push beyond 8 of our full pain threshold. And hip flexors are kind of, they're pesky. They're amazing, they're important. We couldn't really live without them. But they're pesky because they have a lot of stored memory in it. They have a lot of stored habitual grip. And when we get into a posture that seeks to unravel that, it really can flip on the stress response. So we have to preemptively counter the stress response by softening the face and by prolonging your exhale. Both of those feed the tone of your parasympathetic nervous system. As your hip flexors evolve in this way, any tension or restrictions we've built up also in the diaphragm, that starts to evolve. And after your last exhale here, starting to come up from your back to your elbows, from your elbows to your hands, all the while keeping the left leg active. And once you're all the way up, come forward on all fours. Stretch your left leg back for just 2 or 3 breaths. Keep your toes on the floor. And just notice if you can engage your quad, you get your knee reset, you get some circulation back to the leg. It doesn't have to be too long. And then we'll change. So again, you frame the block with your ankles, keep your knees together. And like you did before, this time you're going to grab your right calf and just push your calf down your leg like you're sliding it down the tube of the shin. Perfect. Step your left foot forward in front of you. Bring your hands slightly back behind you with the fingers facing forward. And then lift your butt. Do a posterior tilt. See if you can land the middle portion of your glutes down. Look at your right thigh. Make sure the knee stays strictly in line with the hip. Try not to ever let your knee waver out laterally to where the hip is. And then if you're on your hands, you can come back to your elbows. If you do get to your elbows, push with your elbows again, lift your butt, do another little bit of posterior tilt. Okay, and if that's all right, make sure you still keep your right toes active. You can come back to your back. And once you get onto your back, maybe give a little bit more pressure with your top spine, the top of your thoracic spine, shoulder blades, do more posterior tilt, and land for the final last time onto the block. So it's really kind of the most extreme version of this pose is this one here, where you have the block underneath your butt and you still can keep your right thigh down. You don't have to do the most extreme, ever. Just keep your butt on the floor. Close your eyes and just kind of secure yourself into all these sensations of the right thigh, the whole right hip flexor chain. Keep your breath moving, keep your exhale especially flavorful. Every time you breathe out, what happens? you're extracting waste from the body. So you're removing more carbon dioxide, which in your body is actually an acid. And acid is inflammatory, acid is restrictive. So the better that you're able to exhale, the less inflammation you can be holding on to. And a lot of these muscles that we feel are just so hard to break through, it actually is inflammation that restricts them. If it's not inflammation, it's going to be habit. Either way, exhales help flip another part of your nervous system into the job, so it's not just so scary. You're approaching it with, and the only word that comes to mind is mindfulness, attentiveness. A few more breaths. Good. And then slowly bring your hands down. One by one, lift yourself from your elbows to your hands. And from your hands, back forward on all fours to stretch your right leg back. Okay, and then get your belt ready for this. So what I'm going to show you here on Michelle, so take a look at what she does. First, she's going to stand on her knees facing the camera. Okay, so you're going to take your belt, you're going to put it right over your torso. And then we're going to tighten it. And so what I want you to keep in mind as you do this is exactly where to place the belt, because an inch can make a huge difference. Right? It can go from very functional to completely useless. So right now, as you guys stand there, put your hands on your hips, and you know these two pelvic bones here, these two landmarks that stick out in the front. Those are your ASIS bones, anterior superior iliac spine. Put the belt right over that, so that it even is, so like on Michelle here, this is where her ASIS bones are. So I'll go even just a little bit further down to that, so that when she starts moving with it, the belt, if it slides up, it'll still stay on those landmarks. So go just a little bit lower than the top edge of those bones. And you want to tighten this belt pretty firmly. You want to keep the buckle in the middle so it doesn't push directly on any other heart structure. Bring your thighs together. Okay, so I'm going to tighten it on Michelle, and you're going to see how tight it is. So if you don't have anybody around right now to tighten this for you, you're going to have to do it yourself. And the other part, just real quick, bring your hands down, turn toward me, is I want you to look at this. So the belt has to be perfectly horizontal to where it is in the back from where it is in the front. So on the back portion of the belt, it's not going to be exactly on the top of your glutes. It's going to be straight in line to where you set it up in the front. And then turn back forward. So she's going to squeeze her thighs together. She's going to exhale and suck her belly in. Exhale all the way. And this is where I'm going to tighten it. Yeah, so that's pretty tight. I can tell by the smile on her face. This is the end. Okay, so once you get the belt tight that way, lay back on your back, so feet towards the window for you. And we'll see how this computes in our back bends. The tail of the belt, just keep it off to the side so it doesn't get in the way of your feet or your hands. And then let's just begin with bridge pose. So put your feet down, lift your hips up. Perfect. Lift your toes, spike your heels into the floor, and just notice how much more lift you can get in the pelvis. Okay, and those of you that ever suffer from some kind of like a trapping, constricting feeling in your low back due to back bends, pay attention if this feels at all different. And I know that bridge pose doesn't really implicate those tensions quite yet, so we're just still warming up. Now from bridge, place your hands next to your ears. And when you place your hands next to your ears, you want to make sure that your fingers face slightly away from the head. So it really is the same exact position that you do for downward dog. It really is. There's no difference. First, with your hips already lifted, lift your heels next. Keep the heels lifted, come to the crown of your head. And once you set yourself on the crown of your head, this can be a perfect stop point. You don't have to go further. Make sure that your fingers do not slide back in. At all costs, make sure your fingers don't ever face each other. They're always facing away. Keep the heels up still. Next inhale, straighten your arms. Just as much as you can. It doesn't have to be all the way straight. You can, again, look at your hands. Just don't stare at your hands the whole time. Eventually, you want to be able to relax your neck and let your head hang. The heels can be lifted for as long as you want them to be lifted. If you want to bring your heels down, imperative that you really get the inner heel attached as much as possible. And then we use the legs to press backwards. So yeah, use your legs to press away from the front of the mat and to push back towards your chest. So keep kicking away from me. Kick away, kick hard, kick hard. Good. And then slowly come on down. The belt can actually be kind of intense. Right here. Yeah. And the belt can be intense there on the front of your hips. And unfortunately, there's just no other way that we can work around that because there has to be a certain level of tension. So between these back bends, just let your knees rest against each other. Let your hands rest on your abdomen. And why are we doing this with the belt? So the simple answer is all that lower abdominal strength that we were poking our fingers into before, many of us don't have that trained or don't repeat that too often. So the job of the belt is to mimic the job of that lower band of your abdominal muscles, your transversus abdominal. And as we increase the tone of those muscles, they actually narrow up the front of the pelvis, thereby creating more space on the back of the pelvis, which usually closes and back bends. So is that a little bit again? Okay. So let's try the second round. Start with bridge again. Start with a heel lifted bridge. We call it high heel bridge. Place your hands next to your head. Keep the heels up, come to the crown of the head. Good. Make sure your hands are firm, fingertips firm. Keep the heels up, press all the way up on the inhale. Nice. Now let your head hang. Start to press your chest towards the back of the room. So from where I'm standing, Michelle's pressing her chest right into my finger by using mostly her legs. And when you settle in there, close your eyes. And what's the context of yoga? The context of yoga is really we're doing challenging things with the body, but we're at the same time observing that our attention to this detail, that's not actually challenging. It's the sensations in the body that are challenging. But the action itself and the mental cognitive force that drives it, that's always easy. That's always clear. Lift your heels to come down. And again, let your knees rest against each other. Feet apart. You can put both hands on the belly, or one on the belly, one on the chest, or neither of those. Okay, so you did 2 rounds with the belt there on your hips. Now loosen up the belt. If you want to take it off, you can. Otherwise, it might just suffice to loosen it up so it doesn't really do that anymore. It doesn't do what it was doing. And now we're going to try to replicate the same movement with our own muscular structure, all the way over there in the lower belly. So as you start right now in bridge, we'll take this step by step and continue to circle back to the transversus abdominals. So first, when you get into your bridge, remember that low belly band. It's connected to your urogenital muscles. So pull all that stuff up, not suck it in your belly, then place your hands next to your head. Once you come up to the crown of your head, circle back to your low belly again. Lift it tight. At the same time, keep your glutes really strong. Next inhale, lift all the way up. And all the way up might mean you still keep your arms bent. That's fine. But again, circle back to the low belly and lift it. So imagine you're pulling your entire pelvic floor right up towards your chest. And then relaxing your head, close your eyes. Press with your feet in the effort to take your heart back even more. Yes. Very nice. Keep kicking. Keep kicking, you guys. There. Face this challenge with equanimity. Yes, we're really paying back the debt for our health. 2 more breaths. Keep kicking. Good. And then slowly come on down. Good. And in between the poses, or after the pose, bring your thighs together, let your hands rest, close your eyes. These hour classes are just flying by. Okay, so let's kind of start to remove some of these effects of back bends out of the body slowly, so we get to balance out again. Hug your legs to your chest next. If you haven't taken the belt off, you can definitely start to remove it at this point. And that really points to the fact that we use the belt, points to the fact that props are only there to remind us of what we can do eventually without props. And so a prop in yoga, unless it's a yoga wall, is really no more than the, what do they call those child wheels on bikes? Yeah, anyways, you know, the little wheels that you put on training wheels. Okay? All right, so once you get your legs hugged in, bring your feet back down to the floor. Let's get a couple of minutes in our inversions. So take your legs overhead, start with plow pose. Good. And then once you take your legs overhead, first interlace your fingers behind you. And then do a little staggering, shifting side to side so you can narrow your shoulders up. Okay, once that happens, hold your back ribs and ideally aim your hands closer to the shoulders when you do it. As you start to lift your legs up for shoulder stand, the most overlooked and understated point of shoulder stand is that the weight should actually land not on the shoulders much, more as much as possible towards the elbows, towards the lower end of your upper arms. What that's going to do is it's going to keep less pressure on your neck, which is exactly what we want. And the second point is it's going to force your bicep muscles to work to support your body, which is another great thing because your biceps are also part of your whole shoulder flexion mechanism. And in cases where people have weakened and atrophied biceps, they actually start to have a restricted and pathological movement in the shoulders because your bicep connects right into the heart of your shoulder joint. Okay. Now staying in shoulder stand for another minute, you have the option if you want to go into Viparita Karani, which just means you're going to have a block underneath your pelvis, your legs will be vertical, and your torso is more in slant. Your torso is more in bridge position. Make sure that your head is turned. Close your eyes, feel what's going on in the back of the neck. And you might not be able to see this too well unless you zoom in, but the back of the neck here doesn't have any pressure and contact with the ground. You want to have like a little microscopic tunnel on the back of the neck, so you're never just squeezing it into the floor. The shape of the neck is more of a lordosis, so it means your neck is naturally a back bender. So we don't want to force it too much into forward bending. Okay, now from here, go back to plow pose, unless you want to stay in Viparita Karani, of course. And then when you get into plow pose, there's 2 ways you can go about it. You can either point your toes, just like this, and have the tops of your feet on the floor, or you can do it the other classical way and keep your toes curled. Doesn't matter, that's up to you. Feel which one starts to really pull on those habitual tensions, familiar tensions in the body. But beyond just what you're doing with your feet, press your legs down into the mat. If you had a scale underneath your feet, think about increasing the weight on that scale. So as you push your feet down, what happens in turn is your pelvis starts to lift. And that's what we want to do. We want to create more length in the spine. And if you push your legs down, it does actually prop your pelvis and your hips up in a way that creates more length there. Okay, those of you that are fond of contraindications, the ear pressure pose, you can bend your knees and hug your knees around your head. This is basically the inverted version of that airplane emergency pose, right? So it's an interesting way to meet an emergency. If you're ever faced with one, this helps you close your ears, protect your head, protect your vital organs, and you're actually hitting your parasympathetic nervous system. To come out, hold the mat with your hands, and then slowly glide and slide yourself down. And this now brings us to our final resting. These hour classes go by way too fast, they're way too short. So if you'd like a twist to end your practice with, you can do a supine twist. Otherwise, just get yourself nice and ready for your rest. And then either way, whatever you're setting up for right now, even if you're twisting and still moving, there's an intimation, kind of a presage of the resting that's going to come. And you can start to invoke that even when you're still moving. By the time you are ready to rest, there's two options for the legs. If straightening your legs to the mat feels kind of awkward in your lower back, you can bend your knees or put a bolster or something underneath the knees to keep them bent a little bit more naturally. And get something to put over your eyes. I can't stress this enough. And I say this in classes, or I used to say it in classes from time to time, but human beings have kind of gotten a bad reputation about our certain physical capabilities. Right? We hear that cheetahs run faster than us, almost every animal is stronger than us, faster than us, jumps higher, flies better, hears better, smells better. But we don't actually hear about how fine-tuned the human visual system is. Other than those predatory birds like eagles and hawks and such, the human visual apparatus is the most sophisticated and precise of all other animals. So human beings have incredible visual acuity. What does that mean when we're resting though? It means that when you close your eyes, it doesn't just go plainly dark in your visual system. You can still see light. Right? Everybody knows if you go outside on a bright sunny day, you close your eyes, it doesn't get that much darker. It's not pitch black behind your eyelids. And so if there's any light being perceived, there's always going to be stimulation to the visual cortex. And if you cover your eyes, you really put to rest the most active part of your brain, the most active part of your sensory system, your visual system. And when you put that stuff to rest, then it's basically taken an energy drain, like an electricity drain, out of the body, and allowing it to proliferate a little bit better and easier through the rest of you. By all means, take as long as you need to in this pose. Any Shavasana you ever do, ideally turn to the side to come out. Thank you guys for coming and practicing again. Wish you a beautiful rest of your Friday and weekend. Don't forget, and some of you know I'm talking to you, drink your water after your practice. And know who you are. Thank you guys. Much love. Namaste.